Hi, my name is Daniel Greenwalt, and I'm doing my presentation on Native American leadership. Now, before the Europeans arrived in the Americas, it's estimated that there were about 50 million Native Americans there. They're both numerous and diverse. So, North America can be divided into about 102 traditional territories. And before Columbus arrived, the US and Canada can be divided into 10 cultural areas. And these areas are the Arctic, the subarctic, the Pacific Northwest coast, the Northwest Plateau, the Great Plains, the northeastern woodlands, the southeastern woodlands, the Great Basin, California, and the Southwest. Now, there's over 500 recognized tribes in the United States today. And I will mainly be focusing on Native American tribes in the US and Canada, even though there's a large number of tribes as well as cultural territories that are all distinct in their own way. I will be speaking generally about Native Americans. I was trying to look up any information on the Hofstede's cultural dimensions, and I couldn't find anything specific to Native Americans. So I just went ahead and I used the information that I gathered to estimate what it might be. I'm going to give my reasoning for each of the scores that I give as well. So for power distance, I would say that the Native American cultures were low in power distance. And this is because the leaders were selected by the tribes, not people that asserted themselves as leaders. And the leaders only remained as long as they needed to be in service. And then beyond that, leaders had no power over others in the tribe, and leaders couldn't command. And so this was very leveling the field, if you will. And leadership roles are less formal in Native American societies, and the leadership roles were spread more evenly amongst the tribal members. And there were different leaders for different aspects of the society, such as a leader for warfare, for peacemaking, and a different leader for spiritual issues. For individualism, I would give this a low score as well, because the Native Americans were committed to preserving their culture in the community. They were committed to their families and the community at large. And the leadership was very communal, with decisions being made collectively. And decision-making processes are based on gaining consensus rather than an individual just telling others what their decision is. And they valued leading by example rather than by the right of their title. And there's more emphasis on giving things away to the community rather than on accumulating things for oneself. And an example of this is the potlatch, which was a big feast where gifts were given to the tribe. And it was very communal because the focus was on relationship building. For masculinity, I would give them a low score, because some native nations followed matrilineal lines where women hold significant formal and informal power, while others organized lineage through men without implying less value for women. Their culture is more cooperative than it is competitive, which is a feminine trait, and it's more focused on caring for others than on achievement, and they care more about the quality of life than on quote-unquote winning. For uncertainty avoidance, I would give this a low score because they had a circular worldview and they did not necessarily feel very threatened by unknown situations that might happen in the future because things were seen as repeating. The future was seen as a repetition of the past, so they didn't put efforts into avoiding what might come, what might be unknown in the future. For long-term orientation, I would give it a medium because there are factors on both sides that we can attribute to the culture of the Native Americans. They focused on the well-being of the tribe, and they focused on taking care of the land, which is aiming at long-term future. They also, on the other hand, protected their culture, traditions, and rituals, which is looking at their past and maintaining that. So they both had the future and the past in mind. For indulgence, I would give them a medium score as well, because again, there's factors on both sides. They valued self-control, and they emphasized the well-being of the tribe over individual indulgence. But on the other hand, they had ceremonies and festivals where they would celebrate with expressions of indulgence. And so they were connected to nature, meaning that brought balance between work and rest, meaning that's why I would give them a medium score here. So there's no specific data, again, from Hofstede, but these are generalized estimates based on the research that I did, and there are many tribes over a vast area, so it does not apply specifically to any individual tribes. So these are just estimations. So as far as the history of colonization that happened in the Americas is that Europeans imposed their governance system on the Native Americans when they came into contact with them. And the values between these two systems clashed. And they're practically opposites on the Hofstede scale. It meant that they didn't understand each other in a lot of different ways, at least from the get-go. And the largest difference being in individualism versus collectivism, because Western civilizations are typically more individualistic. And in general, what happened was the colonists did not consider the Native American ways of life and culture. They didn't value them, and it led to ongoing struggles, and a lot of which are still going on today. So as far as leadership values that Native Americans esteem is wisdom and experience. That's how they would choose their leaders, based on that, and that's deeply intertwined with their spirituality. And they also looked for how a person contributed to their society, and they wanted to see how well they protected culture and their traditions to maintain those things. They also looked for humility in a leader, as opposed to what we typically look for in America, which is assertiveness. They looked for humility in that. And they also looked for a leader who had listening skills and expressed empathy on the people that they were caring for versus making judgments. So these are the four things that they valued. And as far as the Native American church, I need to distinguish between two different things here, because there are Native American Christians, and then there's a specific organization called the Native American Church. There are denominations that we know of, evangelical denominations, such as Southern Baptist Calvary Chapel, Presbyterian, Assemblies of God, or Independent, that have Native American churches within them. And these churches minister to Native American communities through their own culture. But there's a separate thing called the Native American Church, or peyotism. And we know that Native Americans are very spiritual in their culture. And in peyotism, they combined their spirituality and their practices with Christianity in one. And so it goes beyond just contextualizing with culture. It combines beliefs. And so Christians don't typically believe that this is still Christianity. And their beliefs is that disease and bodily ailments are an imbalance in a person's body, and they need to be cured with sacred plants and other religious methods as well. And so peyote is a small cactus used in religious ceremonies, and hallucinations through using this plant are seen as spiritual visions. Even though pluralism does exist in this way, it's still important to not confuse pluralism with contextualization. Some lessons that I learned from this are that leaders can emerge informally without being individually chosen to be in a position. And they can lead through consensus, and that leaders can use humility and empathy as their qualities of leading, as opposed to being assertive and making decisions in the moment for everyone. And these aren't necessarily better than the opposite ways of leading. It's just different ways of leading, and it opened my eyes to the possibilities for how I can adapt in different cultures or even different situations within my own culture. But it gives me the ability to adapt to different leading styles. Learn about Native American culture and try to understand their worldview and perspective to see things through their eyes. And it'll help to reveal why they value leadership in the way that they do. Because when we learn opposing styles of leadership, then we can be more adaptable and more flexible in different cultures or different situations. So our goal is to fulfill the Great Commission, and to make disciples of all nations. And being adaptable makes us more effective to do that, to spread the gospel. And so that's my encouragement to you guys. Thank you.